Hello everyone, today we're going to cover function method calls. Those two words are sort of interchangeable. We use the word method to refer to a function that's inside of a class. So I'm going to try and use those words fairly interchangeably just to help you build the understanding that they're basically the same. And what is the purpose of a method? It's a way to organize our code. That's one of the big reasons we use methods, and it allows you to redo operations. So if it's something that you want to do more than once, it's very easy to repeat the operation by performing the method. An easy example of a method is this button click. It's an event handler, but it's also a method because you can call this if you want. You can call it. I could call it right here in the form. It does want two arguments, which are shown right here. But see how it accepts it here. And this is my constructor, so this runs right when the program runs. But let's bring back our focus to implementing methods. So here we have a simple calculator, and I would like to show how to use a couple of methods. Of course, the code could all be written in the button click. So we're just going to have two values, we're going to add them, it's going to show in the result. That'd be very easy to build in the button click. But as we build this up, I'm going to show why it's important to start using methods intelligently, because then your code it'll get pretty heavy without good organization and good use of methods. So here I have a method call, function call here. I'm gonna call a function called update result label. First thing I want to do is use the private keyword. I see public here, that's fine. That allows you to call the constructor whenever you want. But typically you want everything private. It's just a good habit. We'll get into what that does at a later point. So here I've created my method, and the red underline went away. So the compiler's happy, this code will run. It won't do anything, but it'll run. What are these keywords? This keyword private refers to the scope. Remember how we were talking about the scope of what goes on in here isn't visible, what's going on over here? Well, methods are your way of expanding scope. So this function can see this method. It can't see the variables inside the method, but it can see the method, so it can call the method. Private is a way of saying what is inside of here is only available inside of here. If it's public, something else, another class, so we have class form 1, another class can call something if it's public, but not if it's private. But let's focus on methods. So what do I want this method to do? Well, this method is going to call another method. Oh, before we do that, let's talk about what this void stands for. It's a return type. So a method can become, once it's done running, it's quite common for the method to give a value back to the caller. Void means it's not going to return a value, but it'll make more sense when I build a method that does return a value. So here, let's build the structure of a try-catch block. we're going to do our code in a try-catch block here. And let's do a calculation. So here we're going to have a calculation variable that's going to use another method. Now you'll see on the right hand side here, I place my method. Here, my function call is by itself. But here, I've put it on the right hand side because I'm planning to change the return type here. So private, pretty standard, but this one's going to be a double. And the compiler's complaining because I haven't put return here yet, but we'll do that in a minute. I want to finish what I was saying here, which is notice the right hand side is going to be assigned to this calculation variable, which is a double. So I'm able to do that because this is going to return a double. So let's throw that code in real quick. We'll say double final val here and return final val. So the compiler is going to be happy with this if I give it a value. The compiler is happy with this, so now this method returns this value. So after the method runs, after it does its magic, it's going to return a value to the caller here, and this is the caller. So this value gets placed into calculation, this double. Pretty straightforward. That's what the return type is here. So this one's a void return type, meaning nothing gets returned. That's why I don't have an equal sign operator here. But here, the return type is double, so we do have a return within inside this function. It must have a return, as you saw earlier. It wasn't letting the compiler was not happy. You saw the red underline. It needs to return something. So let's finish writing this function here. So we're going to calculate from text box values. As you might expect, we are just going to calculate some math. They're going to turn this into an add button. I'm just copying and pasting the code to be a little quicker here. So val1 is just the value coming out of the first text box. Val2 is the value coming out of the second text box, the one that's lower. We're using the double parse function that we've seen in the past. I could do try parse, but I'm catching the error right here, and we don't need to do try parse if we are doing a try catch. So this will catch any errors here. And here I'm adding the two values that come out of the text box to final val. So final val is being updated. In fact, this doesn't even need to be, we don't need to assign that 0 anymore. And then it's going to return this value. So whatever the addition of these two values is, you know, say val 1, I put 1 and 2 in here. Final val is going to be 3. It's going to turn this into 3. If you walk through it with the debugger, you'll see this become 3. You'll see calculation become 3 if I put in 1 and 2 and press add. And then we want to update this label. That's the last thing we want to do. So I'm going to copy and paste more code. We have this calculation double. We need it to be a string before we can change result here. So I'm converting it to a string. And now result can be assigned to the label. So now the label will update with the result, which calculation was 3. The double variable of calculation was a 3. Then we turned it into a string, called it result, assigned result to the label. So now we have a string going into this value. And the last thing is this catch block. Let's update that with just a little message box. This is what the message will say. This is what appears right up there on the message box where it says simple calculator. And then we'll update the result to say error if anything bad happens. So let's run this code and see how the program operates. All right, took a while for it to do that, but it's ready. There's 3. Let's delete this. We get invalid text box inputs, and we see error, just as you would expect. And because I use doubles, we keep the decimal value, which is probably what you would want for a calculator. So that explains some of the basics of method function calls. And next we'll get into the weeds and really see the power of these method and function calls. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Bye.